6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is a news edited by Danushka Medawala and read by J. Yogaraj. First, the headlines. During the time which Sri Lanka imposed travel restrictions, the country had to incur a financial loss of more than 450 billion rupees. The government assured that there is no oil leak from the fire-ravaged container ship. A special program will be implemented to increase organic fertilizer production. The meeting between the President and the TNA postponed. The US President has appointed a new ambassador to represent the United States in Sri Lanka and Maldives. News overseas: Israel strikes in Gaza after Hassan attacks. And those are the headlines. State Minister Ajit Niwad Cabral says that during the time period which Sri Lanka imposed travel restrictions, the country has to face a financial loss of more than 450 billion rupees. Daily loss to the gross domestic production is more than 15 billion rupees. During the time which travel restrictions have imposed, the income of the small-scale businessmen have sharply reduced. Due to that reason, they were unable to pay their loans and need to fix their loan repayments. It is a huge impact to the economy of the country. Other than that, the government had to pay salaries for a large number of government servants without taking any work or duty from them. A large number of daily income earning families lost their income. The state minister said that with many of these hardships, the government continues to buy vaccines and import essential medicines and medical equipment as well. The Sri Lankan government on Tuesday assured that there is no oil leak from the fire-ravaged container ship MV Express Pearl, which is gradually sinking in the seas about 10 nautical miles off Colombo Harbour. Express feeders, operators of the Express Pearl, also confirmed yesterday that the vessel's forecastle deck is now submerged and the forward section of the hull continues to slowly settle to the seabed at a depth of 21 meters. According to these salvors, as of 600 Sri Lankan local time, Tuesday, there has been no noticeable fuel oil leak, and some minor debris has been collected. The ship operator said a grey sheen continues to be observed emanting from the vessel, and a discoloration of the sea in and around the wreck remains. This has been apparent since the vessel's stern became submerged and the remnants of the cargo in the 1,486 containers that were on board were exposed to seawater. Meanwhile, the vessel's captain has appeared in court without charge, supported by company lawyers under Section 12 of MPPA. He was released on bail. This news broadcast comes to you from Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. A special program will be implemented to increase organic fertilizer production. Discussions are taking place in this regard with small and medium-scale organic fertilizer producers. State Minister Mohan De Silva says that the program is now taking place in the Kalutara district and it will be implemented in future in other districts as well. The government purchases fertilizer through Lak Pohora and commercial Pohora corporations. Meanwhile, State Minister Kanaka Herath says that the production of local organic fertilizer will be increased to meet fertilizer requirements of tea and rubber plantations. He said that 4 large-scale organic fertilizer factories have been built. Small-scale organic fertilizer factories will be built at regional level. He said the necessary financial allocations have been made by the government. The Tea Research Institute says that the fertilizer need or requirement for tea plantations can be reduced by preventing soil erosion. Parliamentarian Dr. Upul Galapathy says that the Cost of Living Committee will focus attention on granting relief to the low-income families due to the increase in fuel prices. This fuel price hike is a problem for not only to the people but also for the government. The government's aim is to ensure minimum burdens are imposed on the people at this juncture. The TNA says that the meeting between Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and delegation of the Tamil National Alliance, scheduled to be held today, stands postponed. Early on Tuesday, a statement issued by TNA spokesman and Jaffna legislator M.A. Sumantiran says the TNA was meeting the President today to discuss ways and means of taking forward the process of constitutional reforms. The White House announced yesterday that the U.S. President Joe Biden has announced his intent to nominate Julie Chung as ambassador to represent the United States in Sri Lanka and Maldives. Julie Chayun, nominee as ambassador to the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka and to serve concurrently as ambassador to the Republic of Maldives, is a career member of the Senior Foreign Service, a class of Minister Councillor, and is currently serving as Acting Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Born in Seoul, South Korea, Chung earned a BA at the University of California, San Diego, and an MA at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs. And that's local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa on Tuesday said Sri Lanka was able to stand before the world as an independent nation due to the support of Chinese Communist Party and leftist movement. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa made this statement addressing the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party through video technology at Temple Trees last afternoon. He said China has been developed into a world power today because the Chinese Communist Party recognized the mark of that civilization. Highlighting the historical similarities between China and Sri Lanka, the Premier said the two nations maintained the same state, language and religion ever since. Our historical similarities as well as the friendships are very powerful. Our historical similarities as well as the friendships are very powerful, the Premier said. And that came to you in top news.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the people in the area said that the transport has been disrupted as the road from Matara to Diyavilla has not been developed. They said that the road is being used to transport harvest in the area. Although concrete has been laid about 10 years ago on the road, it is now in a dilapidated condition. People request the authorities to repair the road immediately. And that came to you in Watchlight. Up next is the world news. Headlines: Israel strikes in Gaza after arson attacks. Saudi man executed for crimes committed as a minor. Billionaire Mackenzie Scott gives away $2 billion more. And those are the headlines of the World News Bulletin. Moving on to the stories in detail, Israel says it has launched airstrikes against Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip after incendiary balloons were launched from the territory. Explosions were heard in Gaza City in the early hours of Wednesday. Several balloons were sent from Gaza into Israel early on Tuesday, which caused multiple fires according to the Israeli Fire Service. It is the first major flare-up since 11 days of fighting between the two sides ended in a ceasefire on 21st May. It followed a march by Jewish nationalists in occupied East Jerusalem on Tuesday, which had drawn threats from Hamas. Saudi Arabia has executed a man for offences that rights groups say he committed while aged 17, despite the kingdom's assurance that it had abolished the death penalty for minors. Mustafa Hashem was arrested in 2015 for protest-related offences. Saudi authorities say he was charged with forming a terror cell and trying to carry out an armed revolt. But rights groups had called for a stop to his execution, saying their trial had been unfair. Billionaire Mackenzie Scott, ex-wife of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, has donated another $2.7 billion to a range of charities. Ms. Scott said in a blog post that she wanted to give the money to those that have been historically underfunded and overlooked. She wrote that as she had chosen 286 organizations working on racial inequality, the arts and education. And that's world news. And moving on to development news, the government has received the cabinet approval to award a contract to Hirura's Private Limited to construct a wind power plant in Mana. Cabinet approval was granted on the 29th of January 2019 to add 16 megawatts wind power capacity to 5 grid substations at Trincomalee, Mana, Madampe, Bolavatta and Kapalture. Under this project, international competitive bids have been invited for the construction of the wind power plant for the Mana grid substation and its connection to the transmission network. And moving on to sports. World champions France started their Euro 2020 campaign with a win over Germany thanks to a Mats' own goal in a high-quality heavyweight Group F match. Max Hummels recalled for his tournament after being told by coach Joachim in 2019 that his international career was over, diverted Lucas' cross into his own net in the first half of the fascinating contest in Munich. And that's sports news.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
SPA International in a statement has said that 3/4 of Sri Lankan goods and that were exported recently to SPA Oman under the initiative by the Sri Lankan Embassy in Oman have been told after just 15 days, highlighting the demand of the success of this initiative. The statement also states that SPA Oman had added 78 new Sri Lankan products under this initiative.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news. Courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
The Sri Lankan government is planning to hold discussions with the government of Bangladesh on entering into preferential trade agreement between the two countries. Trade movements between the two states are lies at a minimum level despite our special provisions under several accords during the diplomatic tour of the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa in Bangladesh in last March. The leaders of the two member states had agreed upon the requirement of entering into a free trade accord for strengthening economic relationships between the two countries.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act No. 42 of 2011.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Met Department says several spells of showers will occur in western, central, Sabragamu and northwestern provinces and in Galle and Mathura districts. Wind speed will be increased up to 30 to 40 kilometers in the western slope of the Central Hills, northern, north central and northwestern provinces and in Hambantota and Trincomalee districts. The wind speed can be increased up to 50 kilometers per hour at times in these areas.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasir, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
Before we wind up this news podcast of Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation, let's look at the main points once again. During the time period which Sri Lanka imposed travel restrictions, the country has to incur a financial loss of more than 450 billion rupees. The government assured that there is no oil leak from the fire-ravaged container ship. A special program will be implemented to increase organic fertilizer production. The meeting between the President and the TNA postponed. The US President has appointed a new ambassador to represent the United States in Sri Lanka and Maldives. And with that, we conclude this morning news podcast of Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.